Student, today we are going to learn about spring, right? So before we continue, let's play a video over here. Okay. Now, what video is trying to show you that manufacturer is manufacturing very large diameter helical spring. Just try to see how it is manufactured, right? The hot round bar is being wound in a helical manner, right? It is wounded by circular motion as well as the center portion is moving forward, right? So it's a circular motion as well as translatory motion. This result in helical movement, right? This produce helical shape. Just try to observe it. The purpose of showing this video is that the spring is being manufactured in this manner. The steel wire is simply wound about a cylindrical bar which is rotating and moving away, right? So that movement is basically by pitch dimensions. Because the diameter of the helical spring is very higher in value, so you have to wound it in hot condition, otherwise crack will form, right? Now they are heating it further so that the temperature increases, and then they are going to heat it, right? So that the residual stress will be removed. Now they are taking away. Again they are taking another round bar and they are going to wound it, okay? So they are repeating the process. So this is how the manufacturing is going on, okay? Now today's topic is helical spring, okay? Just look at the picture. I have tried to show you that various helical spring in various form, right? So this is helical compression spring. This is helical tension spring, right? These are the same category, right? Now this is torsion helical spring. This is also torsion helical spring. This is also compression helical spring, but having a tapered shape instead of constant shape, right? So based on the requirement and applications, there are various form of spring. But when you say spring, spring is defined as elastic body whose function is to distort, means deform, when loaded, and to recover its original shape when it is unloaded or load is removed, right? So we already have a very good experience of spring, right? When you press it, it deform. When you remove your load, it simply is come back to its original positions. This elastic behavior is used in applying the force. It is also using spring scale, right? So the helical springs are made of a wire coil in the form of helix, as shown in the video, right? So what manufacturer simply doing, it wounding the wire and moving in a linearly, right? It with a specific speed, right? So at each turn, it is moving by certain distance linearly, which is called pitch distance, right? And that's how we are able to create various turn of spring, right? And is primarily intended for compressive or tensile load. So spring is basically designed to take compressive load or tensile load. Now what does it mean? Let me give you the example. Just look at your shock absorber of your motorcycle, right? What it does, it simply compresses. Whenever your wheel is moving over from the pit or the bump, it simply compresses and it absorbs the shock, right? In the same motorcycle, you have a brake, right? So like a pedal brake here, okay? You are pressing it. But here, small spring is attached, which is of tension type, right? So whenever you apply it, it expand. Its distance is increases, right? Or its length, overall length is increases. So here in spring, only two type of forces you can apply, either compressive or tensile, most of the cases, right? But exceptional case is torsion. In case of torsion spring, we are applying the torsional shear stress or torsional forces, right? But overall function is to apply the force, to absorb the shock, right? This is the basic function of helical spring. Now let's list out the important function and application of spring. Now it is used to cushion, absorb and control energy due to the either shock and vibration. Mostly you will find the application in automobile. हमें मालूम है कि भाई जितने भी कार्स हैं, ट्रक्स हैं या फिर मोटरसाइकिल्स हैं, यू विल गोइंग टू फाइंड दिस शॉक एब्जॉर्बर, राइट? सो व्हाट इज द फंक्शन? इट इज गोइंग टू एब्जॉर्ब द शॉक, राइट? As in car and spring, railway buffers, aircraft landing gears, shock absorbers and vibration damper. These are the functions. What it said is absorb the shock, simple function, right? It absorbs the shock and vibrations. Spring are also used to apply the forces. Now, what are the examples? Brakes, clutch, and spring-loaded safety valve, right? This is the example, right? Whenever there is a excess pressure of steam, it pushes this bar, and this is against the spring. The spring is going to compress, and hence the additional steam is going to flow away, right? So this is called spring-loaded safety valve. But here main component is spring. If the spring is not working, then this safety valve is not going to work. Similarly, you can apply force as shown over here, right? So why to apply the force? Sometimes, let's say in a case of theory of machine, the cam and follower need to be in contact at all the time to have a proper motion. This is only possible by using the spring. So spring simply keeps these follower in contact with the cam, right? So always there is a contact. This is only possible by simply the spring, right? So again, in brakes, the brake also have a simply the spring as explained earlier, right? Without spring, you cannot apply a force. Otherwise, what will happen if you remove the spring? It is something like a kind of a dead assembly where you can apply the force, but it cannot come back, right? Brake is an action. You cannot keep it in engaged condition all the time. So spring will simply retract back to its unbrake condition, or say the unbraking situation, right? So that is only possible by spring only, right? So here it is used to apply the forces. The third application is to control the motion by maintaining contact between two elements, as explained by example of cam and follower, right? It is a requirement of machineries. It is also used to measure the forces as in spring balance. So this is the example, right? Here we can attach the weight. So because of that, this pointer will simply move, right? So spring is expanding. So here we are using the tension helical spring. So based on spring constant, the scale will show you the weight we are being lifted, right? So spring scale is used to measure the weight, right? It is also used to store energy as in watches and toys. I hope you have played the toys where you are simply wound in the spiral spring by key, right? Even in older days, we have what you can say the pendulum clock, where we have to give the energy by simply wounding the spiral spring, and it work for 2, 3, 4 days. Then again we have to go for the charging it by simply rotating the key. So spring is used. It's a very important element in mechanical engineering, right? This is an example of shock absorber. Just look at it. Whenever there is a shock, it absorbed by the spring along with the oil, right? It is not only the function of spring, right? There is a oil over here, right? In the shock absorber. So oil will simply damp out the vibration. Only spring cannot be used in shock absorber, right? This is a requirement. Now, what are the types of helical spring? Now, here we are discussing only helical spring. You may recall the leaf spring. Which is subjected to bending, right? So we cannot cover over here. Here, helical spring is basically subjected to torsion or twisting, right? Why the word helical is saying? Its construction is helical, where each turn is wound, but it is having a gap between them, linear distance. And this is what it makes the helical shape. And that's why it is referred as helical spring. Now, there are three types. One is compression helical spring. Second is tension helical spring. And third is torsional helical spring. Now, what's the difference? The word itself says, in compression helical spring, the external force tends to shorten the spring. What happened? When you press it, its length will shorten. It reduces it gets compressed, right? In other words, the spring is compressed. So such spring, which simply subjected to compressive load and its length shortened out, it is referred as compression helical spring. Similarly, in case of tension helical spring, where all the turns are so arranged, right? So when the external force is applied, its length is increases. Now, I can give an example, right? In motorbike, or you can say the bicycle, you have a stand, right? You have a brake. There is a pedal brake where you'll find such spring. So because of this, you can your stand simply remain in a one position. So this is only possible because of the helical spring. Whenever you simply give a little jerk, the stand goes back to its original position, right? So this is only possible by this tension helical spring. So in tension helical spring, length increases. So in other words, spring is elongated. उसकी लेंथ क्या करेगी, बढ़ेगी. उसको हम क्या करेंगे, पुश करेंगे आउटसाइड. So because of that, its length increases. The distance between each turn increases. That's what the difference between the compression and tension spring. Now the third type is torsional helical spring. Now simple, just recall the punching machine, paper punch, right? You must have tried it, right? So there, or even bicycle brake, right? Let me draw over here. I hope this is handle, this is brake. Here small this kind of a spring is provided, right? So that this brake handle will remain in positions. Even in punch machine, we are using this torsional spring, right? It is also used in door closer, right? So here the force is applied is perpendicular to axis. So it is a torsion force. Okay, so that's why the name is given torsional helical spring. Now, helical torsion spring is used to transmit a torque to a particular component in machines or mechanism. This is the function, right? So based on which kind of load you are applying, either compression, tension or torsion, based on that the name are given. Now let's learn the certain terms associated with the helical spring but of compression type. Remember, compression type, not applicable to the tension helical spring. Now first term is solid length. Student, please keep close attention, right? It's very important for the numerical to be solved, right? Now what is solid length? Just look at the figure. Whenever the coil of helical spring touches each other, where there is no chances of further deformations, when they comes into contact to each other, they behave like a solid piece, right? So solid length is defined as axial length of spring which is so compressed, इस तरह से compress किया हुआ है, that means all the coils are touches each others. In this case, the spring is completely compressed. क्या मतलब है, सारे के सारे जो टर्न हैं वो एक दूसरे को टच कर रहे हैं. अब फर्दर कंप्रेशन नहीं हो सकता है, राइट? नो फर्दर कंप्रेशन इज पॉसिबल. इन दिस सिचुएशन द लेंथ वी आर कॉलिंग इज कॉल्ड सॉलिड लेंथ, right? It mathematically, it is very simple. We have to calculate the number of turn, how many coils are there, and multiply the diameter of coil, right? So here, the solid length by mathematical LS is N dash into D. Now what is N dash? The total number of coils. How many circular coils are there, right? So that is total number of coil and multiply by the diameter of wire. यहाँ पे क्या है, दिस इज द डायमीटर साइज, सो यू हैव टू काउंट इट, राइट? सो इट्स अ one diameter multiplied by number of coils, and that gives the solid length. Very simple to understand. Now second term is free length. What is that free length? Free length is defined as axial length of an unloaded helical compression spring. It means when the spring is not subjected to any kind of force, it is free. In that case, no external force act on the spring. So free length is an important dimension in spring design and manufacturing. It is a length of a spring in free state or free condition prior to assembly. जब भी उसके ऊपर कोई फोर्स नहीं है, वो वैसे ही है, in that case it is referred as free length, no load, right? So here in free length situation, each turn of coil is separated by certain distance, linear distance, which is uniform. That distance is called pitch. That distance is called pitch, right? So mathematically, how it is possible? So free length is simply, let me draw over here. This is free, this is compressed or solid length, right? So here it is compressed situation. So I want to calculate this free length. So we are going to calculate in terms of solid length, in terms of deflected length. So here N dash into D, this is solid length, okay, plus maximum deflection, right? So let me draw over here. So this is the maximum deflection. That means once you apply a load, maximum load that you can apply, it is going to deflect it. So that deflection, linear movement is called deflection, right? Plus the total clearance between the coils, even though there are going to be some clearance between the coil, right? So that is taken as 0.15 times 0.15% or 15 times then maximum deflections. This makes, when you add this the clearance and solid length, when you add this in the solid length, it become the free length. So free length is a summation of solid length, that is this. It is also addition of deflection plus the clearance between each coils, right? So this makes free length. Try to understand. It's very simple. Directly you cannot find. You have to take the solid length, you have to then add the deflection, then you have to add the clearance between the each coil. This makes the free length, right? Now another term is compressed length. Now what does it mean, compressed length? Once you apply load, it deflects by certain values, right? So compressed length is defined as axial length of spring. Remember, axial length of spring which is subjected to maximum compressive force. This is very important. Once you apply max force, not possible beyond this, right? In this case, the spring is subjected to maximum deflection. अब अगर आप maximum load लगाएंगे तो obviously the spring is going to subjected to maximum deflection. In that case, whatever length is available is called compressed length, right? So how can you find mathematically? Just look at the figure, right? So at free state, this is the situation. The spring was free, right? But once you applied the compressive load, it deflects and reaches to this level, right? So this is the compressed length, okay? So how can you find? Very simple. From the free length, simply subtract the deflection. So from free length, subtract the deflection. So what is remaining is simply a compressed length, okay? Now let's talk about the pitch. Now axial distance between the adjacent coils. Remember, in uncompressed state of the spring is known as pitch. मैंने पहले ही बताया कि जब भी फ्री लेंथ की बात करेंगे, जब भी स्प्रिंग पर कोई लोड नहीं है, when it is not subjected to any kind of load, in that case the linear distance between adjacent coil is called pitch. It is uniform, right? So how can you find? Very simple. Pitch is simply free length minus solid length, right? So free length minus solid length, right? So what is left out is this much distance divided by number of turn. So we are going to have a uniform distance plus wire diameter d. Why wire diameter d? Because this is the last coil and this is the top coil, right? They are not participating in deflection, right? But still, to find out the pitch distance, we have to consider it, right? So here, the half of these dimensions and half of this wire diameter. From this to this, so center distance, from this to this is called pitch. So we do have to consider this value, right? That's why the wire diameter is added. So from free length, subtract the solid length. So whatever distance is remaining, divide by number of turn, and that is pitch, okay? Now let's talk about one more important term, spring index. Now remember, try to pay attention. This is very important, spring index and spring stiffness. Especially spring stiffness is more important. Spring index is important from manufacturer point of view. What is exactly spring index? The ratio of mean diameter of coil to the diameter of wire is known as spring index. Let me show you one figure, okay? So here, what is mean diameter? So let's take the center, okay? Let's take, this is the center, and again this is the center. So mean diameter is nothing but the average of outside diameter of coil and inside, right? So this is inside diameter, DI, right? Same I can take the outer diameter. So average of that is mean diameter. We are going to call it mean diameter. Let's say DM, okay? Or simply it is denoted by, in reference book, denoted by D. So this mean diameter, right, perpendicular to the spring axis from center to center, divided by wire diameter, means this diameter, right? So capital D by D. So this is referred as spring index. Now what's the importance? Spring index indicates the relative sharpness of the curvature of coil. अब यहाँ पे ध्यान देना है. Generally, spring index value is varying from 4 to 12 is considered based from manufacturing consideration. Now, what exactly is this? Let me explain by example. Let's say C is equal to 6. Let's say C is equal to 10. Let's say C is equal to 20. What does it mean? It is a ratio of mean diameter by small wire diameter. Here it is 6, means the curvature is like this, right? It's a ratio. 10 means little wider curvature. 20 means more larger, means mean diameter is having higher value compared to spring wire diameter. So here more value is difficult, as you see in the video. That just imagine if you keep the C is equal to 20, the diameter, the overall size of the spring is very heavy and it is very difficult for manufacturing, right? Second thing, you cannot keep less than 4. So here it is written, generally spring index is kept between 4 to 6. The best value is 6 to 8 or 6 to 10. Right? So mostly you'll find a spring index between 6 to 8. So what does it mean? Here it says the curvature. Smaller the value, sharp or the very sharp or less radius of the spring from the center to inside diameter, right? So it induces more shear stresses, or it is simply bending stresses, right? So if you have like this or if you have like this, in this case lower compressive stress inside and the lower outside. But if you have a low spring index, then you have to turn it. You have to wound it with a very sharp turn, right? So it introduces more compressive stresses compared to this example, right? So from manufacturing point of view, to maintain easy manufacturing possibilities or given machineries, we simply kept the ratio or the spring index value between 4 to 12, right? It is not hard, but you can have a more value, but you have to think if you keep it larger, then the manufacturing will be difficult, right? The outside diameter will be heavy with respect to the wire diameter. So you require more tooling, right? But if you keep it smaller value, then it is going to create very difficult. Smaller spring is very difficult to produce, right? It is also subjected to heavy stresses in the inside. Let's say this one. Let me show you in the example, right? Just imagine this is inside side, right? So if it is very small, the C value is very small, that is very difficult. Second, it introduces most compressive stresses inside and tensile stresses outside, right? That's why it is by practical values, it is limited between, it is just varying between 4 to 12. Now what is spring stiffness? Please pay close attention. It's a very important term associated with the spring design. The stiffness of spring is defined as force required to produce unit deflections. This is the, I can say, unique characteristics of a spring, right? It is all, once it is manufactured, it is remain unique, right? Now what does it mean? Load acting is P and the deflection due to the applied load is, say, delta. Now what is, let me show you something like this. Let's say the load is applied 100 Newton and because of that the deflection is caused is 5 mm, right? So what is the value? Here it is said 20 Newton per millimeter. So spring stiffness is 20 Newton per millimeter. What it says? The force required, here it is 20. टू प्रोड्यूस यूनिट मीन्स 1 मिलीमीटर अगर आपको डिफ्लेक्ट करनी है स्प्रिंग को, कंप्रेस करनी है या फिर एक्सपांड करनी है, तो यू हैव टू अप्लाई 20 न्यूटन फोर्स. इट इज समथिंग लाइक कांस्टेंट व्हीकल स्पीड, लेट्स से 50 किलोमीटर पर आवर. So very simple, in 1 hour vehicle is going to cover 50 kilometer distance. If I say what is after 5 hours, you can calculate by simply multiply by the 5. It's going to be 250. So similarly, once you know the spring stiffness value, you can either calculate the deflection possible, maximum deflection possible, or force you have to apply. to get this much deflection, right? Based on the situation, either you are applying the force or either you are deflecting it, right? So it's a very important term associated with the spring design, right? So it's a force required. By definition, it's a force required to produce unit, means 1. यहाँ पे क्या है 20 न्यूटन पर मिलीमीटर, मीन्स स्प्रिंग को 1 mm कंप्रेस करने के लिए आपको 20 लगाना पड़ेगा. इफ़ आई बोलूँ, अगर मैं बोलूँगा भाई 10 मिलीमीटर कंप्रेस करनी है, तो यू हैव टू से यू हैव टू अप्लाई 200 न्यूटन फोर्स टू deflect the spring by 10 millimeter, right? So you have to use these characteristics to design the spring, right? So it's a unique characteristics of each spring. Now we can discuss, what if K is very small? What if K is very high? Now if the K is very small, means even with a smaller force applied, it deflects at a large value. If K value is very heavy, let's say 5000 Newton per millimeter, means that spring is very stiff, you have to apply very heavy load, then and then it is going to deflect. This is the case of railway wagon, right? It is case of railway wagon, right? So based on stiffness value, you can conclude whether how much force it can resist or it can take, right? Now there are various names of the same stiffness. It may be referred as rate of spring in certain books, right? Some are referred as gradient of spring. It is scale of spring or simply spring constant. You have to remember as a spring stiffness K or simply spring constant. These are the widely used name for this term, right? Now what are the terms associated with the helical spring? Okay. Like compression spring, we do have term associated with the helical tension spring. Now when you say tension, definitely its length is going to increase because of applied tension load, right? So where it is used in bicycle stand, even in brake of motorcycle, even your car brake, wherever you applied it, the pedal goes away, but when you take it away your leg or hand, it come back. So that is just comeback motion is only possible because of the tensile spring, or you can say the tension spring. Now what is the term? First term is solid length. Here, when the spring is not subjected to axial load, see the definition has changed, right? When there is no load applied, the distance between two ends of spring is known as solid length. Here, what's the difference between the tension spring and compression? In tension spring, each turn is already in contact with each other. Why? Because it's a tension nature. You have to apply the tensile load and then it's going to expand it. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? So it's a construction of spring. So here, when there is no load applied, in that case, from this point to this point, it is called solid length. Or sorry, it is not from there, it is over here, from this point to this point. Please consider correction, right? So these are the only turns which are going to subjected to deflection. These are the circular hook ends which are used for gripping purpose, right? So they are not taking part in any deflection or shock absorber or force application, right? Only these turns are taking part. So based on this, when there is no load is applied, in that case, the distance between two ends of spring is known as solid length. Here it is very simple. The number of turn, that is n plus 1. Why 1? This half and this half. These two half of the each coil is taking part. So half plus half is 1, right? That's why the 1 is added, right? And multiply by the d coil diameter. This gives a solid length in a helical tension spring, right? In case of compression spring, it was n plus d, right? N plus d. Now, what about the total free length, LS? The length between inside to inside ends. So this is what the shown in figure. Inside, so this is inside, right? And this is inside. So inside to inside ends of extreme coils, when it is not subjected to load, जब लोड नहीं अप्लाई किया हुआ है, तब की बात है. At that case, the length is known as free length from inside position to inside, right? Just look at the pictures. It's an example, or all examples are helical tension spring of different length and diameters. Okay. Now we can find mathematically free length is equal to solid length, that is come from this, plus length of ends of spring. So which is this? This one. This part and this part. When you add it, it becomes the free length of helical tension spring. Very simple. Now let's talk about the design of helical spring, right? Please pay close attention, right? Now the mathematics has started, right? But before that, you need to understand various parameters, right? Various designations. So here, the main dimension of spring is referred as outside diameter DO. So where is that? This is the outside diameter DO, from outside surface to the outside surface, right? So here to here, that is perpendicular to the spring axis. Similarly, what we have inside diameter. So this is where here it is shown, from inside coil surface to the next coil is called inside diameter. Now what is mean diameter? This is very important, as discussed earlier. Mean diameter means from center of wire coil to the another one, right? So it is simply average of inside and outside diameter, right? When you take an average, it is going to give over here, right? So this average is simply mean diameter, capital D. It is shown over here. Now delta is deflection of spring. When you apply load, it is going to deflect, right? So that deflection, the linear movement is referred as delta in terms of millimeter, okay? Now active number of coils or effective number of coils, what does it means? Means those coils, those turn of spring which actually deflect, which actually take part in deflection or application of force, those coils are referred as active coils. But there are also inactive coils. Inactive coils are basically at the ends, which are basically introduced to help to secure this spring in an assembly, right? So they are not taking part. So they are referring as inactive coils. So here the active coils are referred as N, free to deflect, right? So here let me show you in spring, right? So here let's just look at it. Here we are going to have some surface, right? Like this. And over here another surface, right? So these end, this coil and this coil is not basically deflecting, right? So only this one and the intermediary coil are going to deflect. So this intermediary coil, which is actually free to deflect, is referred as active coil. But the end coil, which are simply used to hold the spring in assembly, they are dead. They are not going to actually deflect. So they are referred as inactive coils, right? They are referred as inactive coils. So here active is referred as N and that is referred as N1. So number of coils at the end supporting the spring which do not deflect, okay? Now total means, total coils is simply summation of active and inactive, that is N plus 1, right? That referred as total number of coils. Now let's also discuss the force analysis of helical spring. Now I want you to pay very close attention. While we are not covering leaf spring in this chapter, rather we covering in bending, because leaf spring is subjected to bending. Then why the helical spring we are covering in torsions chapter? Because the way it's deflect and way it works, that's why it is in 4th chapter. So that the time has come to understand it, right? So here for the force analysis, that means in short, we need to understand what is the stresses induced in a spring. What kind of stresses are there, right? So here a helical spring is shown. Whenever load is applied, either tension or either compressions, right? What happened basically? Even if there is compression or tension, these coils either comes closer or either move away. But in both the cases, it is only possible when the one coil simply twist with respect to other coil, right? Just imagine what I'm trying to tell you. Just imagine a helical compression spring, you are compressing it. So each turn of coil is being twisted just grip your hand, two hand in a level and try to move it up and down, right? So that is called twisting motion. So by twisting action only, this springing works, right? So just look at over here, it is going to twist like this, right? So similarly with respect to this coil is going to twist like this, and this coil with respect to this fixed point, this is going to twist like this. So each coil is going to twist with respect to each other. So here it is twisting action is observed. That's why it is considered as a simple round bar subjected to torsion. But because force is applied exactly at the center, there are two possibilities: either direct shear stress or either torsional shear stress. Why direct? Because load is applied parallel to the circular shape, parallel to the circular cross section. So we observe two types of shear stresses in helical spring. One is direct shear stress, that we call it tau 2 for the understanding purpose, and the first, which is of majority, is torsional shear, we are going to call it tau, right? Here try to understand it, right? So we simply unwound one coil. Let me draw one coil over here, right? When I make it in a straight round bar or straight, it is simply pi d length, right? It is of pi d length. If I unwound, if I make a straight wire of helical spring, in that we have to multiply the n, okay, that is number of total turn. So this is simply a same spring in a straight manner, straight form, right? Here when we apply the load, it twists, right? So each turn is going to twist, okay? So here what will happen, because of twisting, what will happen, we have from center, this part is moving in this direction and this part is moving this direction. So we are applying a torsional shear stress. So from center, or you can say in center, there is no stress, but when you move outside, the maximum observed over here, right? Similarly, torsional shear stress is observed on a opposite direction, on this surface, but it is in a reverse direction, having same value. Also, when the load is applied from the center, this B figure indicate the direct shear stress, right? So same coil, spring coil, is subjected to two types of stresses. One is direct shear stress, one is torsional shear stress. When you combine together, what happened? When you combine together, one of the surface, that is inside surface, is more subjected to having a different value of torsional shear stress, right? Or the overall total torsional stress is higher inside and smaller or having lower value at outside. This is because of the summation of torsional shear stress and summation of, you can say, the direct shear stress. So here we have to consider this kind of total shear stress acting on a helical spring. Earlier the torsional stress was 0 in the center, and this was uniform across the cross section. Because of summation of these two, what we are getting this kind of pattern, overall total shear stress, right? So this is the maximum stress we are interested over here. This is the tau max, right? So we have to design the wire diameter D for this tau max, which is the summation of direct stress and the torsional shear stress, right? So here the torque acting on a spring, how the torque is generated? Just imagine the shaft where the electric motor rotated and the torque is simply applied, right? But here it is not like that. Here we are applying the force on the spring, but that force is at a distance from the center of a wire diameter or the coil diameter. This distance is simply mean diameter of half, or half of the mean diameter, okay? So here this distance multiplied by the force applied, this makes the torque. So torque coming on each coil of helical spring, okay? Similarly, the direct shear stress, it's very simple. The force applied on a circular area, that is this area, right? That you can consider this second figure. So it is 4, take it out up, and this is the equations. Now the torsional shear stress is given as simply pi by 16 d raised to cube into tau. This is simple equations, right? Okay, nothing else. But instead of taking in manner of t in terms of torque, I have taken in terms of tau, right? So I have divided over here, and what we have is pi and 16 goes up. So it's the same thing over here, right? So here it is torque mt pi by 16. But the torque value is coming in this manner, right? From this equation, we can replace this. So because of this, we are rearranging the torsional stresses in this manner. tau 1 is equal to 8 PD pi d cube, right? Very simple, by replacing the torque value that is given by the external force on a mean diameter. Now what we have to do, we have to simply combine these two stresses, right? So resultant shear stress is simply summation of direct shear stress and torsional shear stress, right? So what we are going to do here, we are simply adding them. We are going to add them. We are going to add these two stresses, this one and this one, okay?